Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, or what is now popularly known as the Kesavananda Bharati judgment, was a truly remarkable and landmark decision of the Supreme Court that outlined the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. The case was heard by a full court of 13 judges, the largest bench ever, and the judgment was delivered on the 24th of April 1973. The case was filed by one Swami Kesavananda Bharati, the head of the Hindu monastery Edinir Mutt in the Kasaragod district of Kerala, who challenged the Kerala government's attempts under two land reform acts to impose restrictions on the management of the Mutt's property. After hearing the case for 68 days, the Supreme Court in the Kesavananda Bharati judgment held that the provisions of the Indian Constitution can be amended by the Parliament in order to fulfill its socio-economic obligations. However, the judgment also and more importantly said that the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be altered by the Parliament no matter what. The basic structure doctrine means that there are certain fundamental features of the Constitution that cannot be amended by the Parliament, such as the supremacy of the Constitution, the rule of law, the separation of powers, and the independence of the judiciary. The Kesavananda Bharati judgment is considered to be the most celebrated constitutional case in Indian legal history. It is also considered to be a landmark judgment that changed the constitutional history of India for two major reasons. First, it prevented the Indian Parliament from amending Part 3 of the Constitution, which deals with fundamental rights, and second, it established the supremacy of the judiciary in constitutional matters. Today, the 24th of April 2023, marks the 50th year of this landmark decision of the Supreme Court that paved the way for several other judgments of constitutional importance that have since then shaped the current constitutional landscape of the country. Kesavananda Bharati was a monk from the Smarth tradition of the Advaita Vedanta. He was born in 1940 and took sannyas at the mere age of 19 years old. After that, he led the Edinir Mutt, a Hindu monastery in Kasaragod district of Kerala. He held this position until his death in 2020. The Edinir Mutt is believed to be established by Totakacharya, one of the four original disciples of Adi Sankaracharya, the man who created the non-dualistic philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, a path of spiritual discipline in which there is no duality between a creator and the created universe. Kesavananda Bharati was also a patron of Hindustani and Carnatic music, as well as Yakshagan, a form of folk theatre popular in some districts of Karnataka and the border district of Kasaragod. In February 1970, Kesavananda Bharati was compelled to take the Kerala government to court, challenging the 1969 land reforms enacted by the then C. Achyuta Menon government, which had affected his mutt. The reforms caused the Edinir Mutt to lose a large chunk of its property to the government, causing severe financial difficulties. Kesavananda Bharati filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court of India challenging the land reform laws. Along with his lawyer Nani Palkiwala, Kesavananda Bharati argued that the new laws violated his fundamental rights, including that of his right to religion under Article 25, his right to freedom of religious denomination under Article 26, and his right to property under Article 31 of the Indian Constitution. Alongside Kesavananda Bharati, representatives of the coal, sugar, and other industries that were also adversely affected by these land reform laws knocked the doors of the Supreme Court with petitions of their own. The case, Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, went on for over 3 years before the top court. A 13-judge bench, the largest that has ever been constituted in the history of the Supreme Court, heard the case, and the hearings went on for 68 working days. On the 24th of April 1973, the 13-judge bench, in a 7-6 majority, concluded that the Constitution's basic structure is inviolable and cannot be altered by the Parliament. Though what basic structure is itself was not strictly defined, which allowed room for interpretation in future Supreme Court judgments, the following aspects of the Constitution were said to be part of the basic structure: supremacy of the Constitution, the rule of law, federal character of the Constitution, the separation of powers between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, and most importantly, the protection of fundamental rights. Through the judgment, the Supreme Court put in place the basic structure doctrine as a common law legal doctrine that the constitution of a sovereign state like India has certain characteristics that cannot be erased even by its legislature. Simply put, the doctrine establishes that the Constitution has a basic structure that cannot be altered by the Parliament even by way of amendments. It is through this basic structure doctrine that the Supreme Court of India derives its powers to review and strike down laws that are enacted by the Parliament that are in conflict with either the basic structure of the Constitution or the existing laws. It is perhaps for this reason that Kesavananda Bharati, a simple seer from Kerala, is known as the man who saved the Indian Constitution through a simple act of approaching the Supreme Court in an attempt to save his mud. Without him, the Indian democracy in 2023 could have today looked very, very different.